Hello, thank you for joining the South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs for our Wednesday webinar. Today we'll be talking about my information was breached, what now, and we know that you may not be able to control if your information is kind of impacted by a security breach, something like that with the business. So we're going to give you some steps that you can take to kind of protect your personal identifying information in case you get one of those notices about a breach that's occurred at a company that you've used. And if you're like me, I know I have received a couple of those over the past several years. So I am one of these people that this information is relevant for. And of course, we always give our disclaimer. This presentation is not meant to serve as a substitute for reading the various laws discussed, seeking legal counsel, or otherwise requesting department guidance and or interpretations on the laws it administers and enforces. The presentation merely serves as an introduction and overview of our topic. I'm not really going to, well, we will discuss a couple little legal matters today. So that is kind of important to mention today. So here's our little roadmap for our presentation. We'll give you the quick introduction of SCDCA, who we are and how we may be able to help you. We'll talk about security breaches in general, just kind of give you some information about what types of details these hackers and cyber thieves are after. We'll talk about some of the South Carolina numbers about breaches that we've had here in our state. Then we'll give you those free tools to use to be able to protect your information. And then we'll kind of wrap it up with some main takeaways, some things that just kind of reinforce some of the things that we will discuss throughout the presentation. Kind of want to just start with an in general description of kind of what a security breach is. And of course, it's an unauthorized access of records, data containing personal identifying information. Sometimes it's hard to say, but that identifying information is out there, and there's kind of that assumption that there's going to be an illegal use of it, or it's reasonably likely that there's going to be an unlawful use of that information. And when we talk about PII, we're talking about social security numbers, maybe driver's license numbers. It could be those financial account information numbers like your debit card, credit card, anything like that. And it may also be just some of those login things. Those could be involved as well. So if it's those passwords, account usernames, those types of things. So it could be a variety of different types of information, but it's all those things that we tell you to keep secure and to not share that information with other people generally. And of course, state agencies and businesses, if they're keeping that information, there are laws that kind of dictate that they must notify a consumer, must notify their customers whenever that information is breached. And with those notices to our department, just kind of let you know that an organization and also state agencies are included in that. They have to notify South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs and the National Credit Reporting Agencies when more than 1,000 South Carolina residents may be impacted by a security breach. And we always kind of point out with that because of that 1,000 people threshold there on that, we're not always notified whenever there is a breach impacting South Carolina customers. So if you're not, hearing us talk about something or seeing it on our website, that may be why there may just kind of not kick into that 1,000 residents kind of number there with that. But some businesses will notify us, even if there are fewer than 1,000. So, you may see those on our website with a list that shows fewer than 1,000, but just because that isn't on there doesn't mean it didn't take place. It just means that by law, they're not required to notify us, but some businesses will notify us regardless. And I want to kind of give you a quick show of what our website looks like and how to find some of those security breach notices that are reported to our agency. And I've got that little tab circled, the identity theft and scams tab. And if you kind of hover over that, if you're on a desktop, you'll see the security breach notices tab right below it. And that's the page that I'm on right now. And if you've downloaded our slides, actually just clicking this page will take you right there. But if you're just going to consumer.sc.gov, look for that identity theft and scams tab, and then you'll see security breaches there on the right side. So when you get onto that page, it's going to give you, if you scroll down a little bit, it's going to show you the list of companies that have filed those reports with us. And then if you click that business name, it's going to kind of open up another page that will show you all the information that they've sent to their customers. So a lot of those notices probably going to give you details about what happened, if it was maybe a employee sent information to an email list or something, or maybe there was some kind of security breach with their database, something like that. But it's going to outline whatever's happened at that company, whatever information was exposed, and they'll also kind of give you some steps that you might be able to take to kind of react to that breach. And a lot of that information that they're going to tell you is stuff that we'll cover here too as well. But you always want to kind of take a look at those notices, see what information it was of yours that was exposed, and then kind of take those proper steps regarding what information was breached. And we also do have resources on our website for businesses. It's going to detail kind of some of the notification process, let them know what they're supposed to do, and some of the resources that may be available for them as well. So if you're interested in those types of things, you can go to that little business resource and laws section there. So again, consumer.sc.gov, look for that business resources section, and then you'll kind of see security breaches over there in that middle section down at the bottom there. So I've got all of that highlighted for you. And again, if you've downloaded the slides, you'll be able to just click this and it'll take you right there. But also like to point out to people that we do training sessions for businesses on some of the security breach notices. So we kind of go over what the law is for them if there is a breach, kind of what they have to do. Also some of the steps of, what they're legally supposed to do in order of protecting information. So we hold those usually on a quarterly basis, and we have some of those coming up. And I'll kind of show you some of that information at the end of the presentation as well. But I do like to point out that, there are state and federal laws regarding some of that requirements for businesses, and we do work with those to kind of educate them on what the law is and how they can make sure they're following the rules there. I want to kind of give you a little bit of the commonly affected industries by security breaches. So these are kind of the main ones that we see reported from time to time. And of course, education, that category is going to be things like school systems, colleges, universities. Financial category would cover your banks, maybe an investment company, something like that, maybe some kind of lender. Government would, of course, be your local county government, so maybe your town office, something like that, maybe some state agencies. It could kind of run the gambit of those types of things, but those are going to be your local, county, and state agencies for that. Health organizations, of course, would be hospitals, doctors' offices, maybe a pharmacy, insurance company would fall into that as well. And with hospitality, it's going to be your hotels, restaurants, things like that. Some hotels and restaurants, maybe, if you're using their apps or using their websites, things like that, they may be, saving some of that data in there. You may not kind of think about what those apps and things are saving in there with those hospitality businesses that you might use, but they may be storing some of that information. So that's just something to keep in mind. And of course, retail would be a wide range of things. Could be clothing stores, auto parts stores, any kind of retail establishment that you go into, or maybe their websites as well. So that's kind of one of those big reaching categories as well. And we also have an other category that basically everything that doesn't fall into that. We kind of had a good bit of organizations fall into that last time. So we may be kind of looking at what that other category is made up of and seeing if something needs to be broken out of that a little bit more. But that's something that we're kind of looking at too. So here are some of the types of information that these breaches may involve. And of course, the ones that I just showed you, people are always like asking us, why are these types of businesses targeted? And it's just simply because they have that information. So if you think about what information a school may have, they probably have social security numbers of students, addresses, date of births, things like that. So just kind of keep that in mind. That's why these industries are targeted, the ones that I just showed you. So the types of things that, these hackers may be after, of course, personal data. That could be tax ID numbers, social security numbers, names, addresses, driver's license numbers, a lot of the things that I just mentioned there. They're also, of course, after that financial data, right? They want credit card numbers, debit card numbers, anything like that. Maybe some financial transaction, bank statement details, things like that, because that, provides a great deal of information that they may be able to use to get into your bank accounts and things like that. They also want credential data. So that'd be things like your email address, maybe the account username, account password, something like that. Of course, health data is something that they're after a good bit, and that may be medical records, test result information, medications, medical charts, just kind of information that they can use for a variety of purposes. And of course, sometimes if they have a lot of these types of information, they can either target you with other types of scams, maybe some other type of identity theft, something like that. So all this information can be valuable to people, to these hackers and those types of criminals. So that's kind of why they're after it, especially that personal data and that financial data. So any of this stuff is things that they can kind of turn into a financial gain for themselves. I want to give you kind of a quick look at last year. So these are all 2024 numbers that we'll be talking about. We had 121 breaches reported to the South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs. And those breaches impacted, I'm always careful about how I word this. We'll say it's 3.9 million individual breach reports. So the reason I want to be careful about how we word that is sometimes we want to say, 3.9 million consumers, but some of these may be the same people multiple times. So if you're like me and you've gotten multiple breach notices in the mail, I might be included multiple times in that number. So if I had a mortgage company that was breached, and then a month or two later, I had a phone company that was breached, my number would be in there multiple times. So I could be 2 or 3 people within that 3.9 million report. So that's kind of why we word it that way. And the way it's reported to us, we don't really get that list of all the individuals that were impacted by that. While those companies are notifying all those individual customers, they don't report those individual names to us. So that's kind of why there's no way to double check all those names and that information. So that's just kind of why it's presented that way. And I do want to kind of point out, it's kind of interesting when you think about it, there were fewer breaches reported in 2024 from 2023, but that number, that 3.9 million, was actually higher. So if you think about it, 1 or 2 breaches can have a gigantic number. So if there was one company that reported, a breach that impacted, 500,000 people or, more, something like that, I can make that number jump up pretty big right away, right? So that's kind of just something to keep in mind when you think about the number of breaches that were reported and maybe the number of people too. So 1 or 2 companies can impact that greatly. I did take a look at 2025 so far this year, and those numbers appear to be down at this point so far in the year. So hopefully that will continue and we'll see fewer people and fewer number of breaches reported to the agency. But we'll kind of keep an eye over that over the next couple of months as we wrap up the year. And I do like to kind of give you a little quick breakdown of how those industries that we mentioned a second ago, how they kind of reported those breaches to us. So you'll see the biggest financial type companies, so banks, things like that. Anybody who's maybe with credit card companies, something like that could be in those. And again, 32 breaches of those financial companies. And that was the largest number of consumers impacted by that. So 1.8 million in those financial breaches. You'll see retail 8 breaches, but also that number is kind of high, 1.176 million. So, like I said before, not that many breaches, but that number, a little bit larger because of the impact of those numbers of people impacted by that industry. In the health breaches, there were 25 reported to SCDCA in 2024, and that impacted about 364,000 people, or 364,000 consumers, residents of South Carolina. So again, that's just kind of that quick look at that. I do have the other listed on there just because that was kind of a larger number, 45 breaches out of those. So just something to keep in mind. Government breaches, we only had 2 reported to us with that, and with hospitality, we had about 6, I think, listed for that. So just kind of a quick look at what happened in 2024. And again, we'll kind of be looking at 2025 as we wrap up the year here in a couple months. And the big thing that we want to talk about and just kind of share some information with you today, of course, are all those free tools that you can do to protect yourself. So if you're getting these notices in the mail, Just because you've got that notice, the thing that we always point out to people, just because you've got your information breached doesn't mean you're necessarily an identity theft victim at that point in time yet. So it means somebody has access to that information, but they haven't necessarily used it yet. So you want to go ahead and take some steps to protect yourself before they have that opportunity to use your information. So we'll give you some of those tools here first. And we always kind of start off with our fraud alert and security freeze. So the fraud alert, again, all these are free tools to place. You can place it is going to be put on your credit reports. So you'll put it on your credit reports and it's going to last a year. And it's basically going to tell businesses that whenever they're looking at information about you, maybe if you're putting in an application for something, that they need to take a closer look at what's going on and they need to take extra steps to verify your identity. Fraud alert will last 1 year. You can extend it for another 7 years if you are a victim of identity theft. All you need to do is contact one of the credit reporting bureaus, so Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, and I'll give you a little bit of details about that here in a few minutes too for all of those. So you'll go to Experian, TransUnion, or Equifax. You can either call them, go to their websites, you tell them you want to put that fraud alert in place, and then they're going to notify the other two credit bureaus that that fraud alert needs to be put in place. And again, it's just going to mean that something's happened to your reports and they need to take additional steps to verify everything about you and to verify that it's actually you putting in that application, if it's for a loan or credit card or whatever the case may be. A security freeze is something that we always encourage everyone to do. If you've been on any of our presentations, we've likely told you during that presentation, put a security freeze on your credit reports. It's a great tool you can do. And again, it's always free to place. It's free to lift it. You'll also hear me talk about thawing it. That's just kind of that temporary lift. If you put that lift in place, it's going to be kind of more long-term, but you can thaw it so you can set it for just a couple of days at a time too. But basically that's going to stop other people from using your credit reports, getting access to your credit reports too. So if you're kind of not actively looking for a loan, it's a good idea to do, put that security freeze in place, and it's going to stop other people from opening up those new lines of credit in your name. I've got one in place on mine. I honestly had not thought about doing that until I started working here at SCDCA. Kept hearing us talk about it at all the presentations. I put it in place. And sure enough, a few months later, somebody tried to open a credit card in my name. Luckily, I had that freeze in place and it stopped that right in its tracks. So that's a great tool to take advantage of. And like I said, if somebody has access to some of your information, if you're like me and you've gotten several breach notices in the mail, put a freeze in place. So if you're not actively looking for credit, it's not going to allow anybody to open up those lines of credit. Basically, you've got to go to Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, either call them, use their websites, and you'll put that freeze in place. You do have to go to all three with the freeze. But again, it'll take you just a few minutes and it will be a great tool that will kind of stop those things from going through that you don't want them to go through. I'll give you a little bit more information about it here. So again, the freeze, it's available to anybody. It's free. You go to each of the credit bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, put that freeze in place, and then they're going to send you a notification. I'll get to that in a second, but they'll let you know that that freeze is put in place. And generally within a day of either calling them or going on their website, they'll have that freeze in place. There are kind of time requirements with them by federal law. And then if you do it by mail, they have 3 business days to get that freeze in place. And then within 5 days of you putting that freeze in place, they're going to send you some written confirmation. They're going to let you know that that freeze is in place. So that's, you'll probably just get something quick in the mail from each one of those bureaus, and it'll say that freeze is there. And they'll also make sure that you have either a PIN or password to be able to get into that account. You'll be able to lift it, and they're basically just giving you access to either lift or thaw that freeze. And they're going to give you all of those details. And while that freeze is in place, they're going to notify you again that somebody's looking at your credit, something like that, if it's in place. So you want to go ahead and do that, and it's a great tool. Again, the thaw is temporary, so you can remove it. It's pretty easy to do on their websites. Again, Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, you can go in, you can set a time frame for that thaw. So, when I was looking for a new car, I was able to go in. I knew what day I was going to be looking at cars. So you can just go in, set it up on their website to put that thaw in place for that day. And then when you want that thaw to kind of be put back, so when that freeze goes back, I should say rather. And if you're doing that online within an hour of doing that, they'll have that thaw for you. So like I said, I did that one morning before I went to look at the cars. By the time I got to the dealership, my credit reports were thawed. I was able to put in all those applications. They ran those credit reports and then, had it set to go automatically be frozen again on their website. So that's a great tool. If you're doing any of that by mail, they'll have 3 business days to do that. But if you're doing it by telephone or online, they'll have it thawed in an hour for you. And again, the lift is kind of that same process, but that's kind of that more permanent or long term. So if you want to lift it for an extended time, you can do that. Again, it's free to do that. They'll let you go in on their website and they'll have it set up where within an hour that's lifted for you. 3 days if you're doing that by mail. There are additional protections for military. So if you're in the military, you might want to ask around with the credit bureaus a little bit more about some of the information involving the active duty alert. And again, that's just kind of that fraud alert that's going to be in place. And again, it is free for active military members. It's a year, but it can be renewed throughout the length of the deployment if that's a situation you're in. And basically it's going to require businesses to do additional steps. So it's going to put more processes in, more protections for military members. There's a little bit more coverage for those military folks under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. So it's definitely something to kind of ask about that benefit if that applies to you. And again, they're going to provide that additional free credit monitoring, and they'll give you those notifications too if there's any kind of changes or additions to a credit file. So if some kind of address has maybe been changed on a credit report, or if there's a new account that's been opened, or something's happened with an account, they're going to give you all those notifications. And again, that is free for those members of the military. And they will kind of notify you either by the mobile app, email, text of any of those changes to the credit file. And they'll kind of give you additional protections as far as a change of address, payments that are late, things like that. So again, if you're a military member and that applies to you, it's probably worth checking in with the credit bureaus, letting them know about that, and just kind of letting them know it's active duty military and that you need that alert put in place. We often don't really think about child's identity theft, but I know we've had a few cases in the last year or so where they're having, breaches that impacted children's identity as well. So that might be social security numbers, addresses, some of those financial things that are tied to, all of us, health records, anything like that could be impacted, of course. But there is a protective consumer freeze for those that are under the age of 16. And it also can apply to incapacitated adults. You will have to provide additional information to the credit bureaus, and you're going to have to prove that that child is yours, or that you have legal authority with that incapacitated adult. So you will have to kind of provide some additional information to them. I'll give you a couple of links here in just a second. But if you put those in place, those credit reporting agencies are going to have to send you some information. They'll do all that within 5 days. Again, they're going to give you a process to take all these additional steps to put that freeze in place, being able to remove it and things like that. So we'll kind of give you a little bit of information on that. So if you're checking in on a child's credit report, the first thing you'll kind of need to do is probably give them a call. You can also go to their website, so I'm going to give you a link on that too, but you're going to want to ask them to do that manual search of the child's credit report. And the reason we say that is because, you think about children, they shouldn't have a credit report, right? So that's basically what you want to have happen. You do that manual search, and if they were looking through and they're not finding any records involving that child, that's a good thing. You kind of want to keep it that way. And that's kind of why you put that freeze in place after you've done that process. But basically, they're going to go through, they're going to look for that child's name, kind of associated with that social security number. They're going to look for any kind of files or records involving that social security number and that child's name. Then they'll also kind of just search for that child's social security number as well. So they're hopefully nothing's showing up, but if somebody else is using that information and that report has been created, that's kind of that sign of identity theft. And then you'll be able to start that process of challenging all that information. But hopefully nothing has happened on there. Like I said, they are going to require a little bit more information. They do require kind of copies of birth certificates and things like that, maybe some paperwork showing that you are the legal guardian if it's not, direct child of yours. So we've got a few links that will help you out with that. And if you kind of follow some of these, they will walk you through that process if that's something that you need to do. And these top two that I've got listed there are documents that are on our website. So they'll give you to the consumer.sc.gov site, and they'll take you directly to that protected consumer freeze. And it kind of just walks you through that process and all the steps that you need to do. We also did a webinar on this topic not too long ago. We've got the webinar link for there on YouTube. So if you download the slides, you will find that. And also you just go to YouTube and look for SCDCA TV. That will also give you that, and you'll be able to find that child identity theft webinar. And again, it's going to kind of walk you through that process because it is a good bit, requires a lot more work. I shouldn't say a lot, but it requires more work than just that security freeze for an adult. So you want to kind of get into that, put that protected consumer freeze for that child. And again, you're basically protecting everything. So if that social security number or whatever the case is out there, nobody's able to use that information, because with children, it can take years a lot of times. A lot of times it may be, after that child turns 18 or starts applying for colleges, something like that, starts to try to get their first car loan or their first credit card. That's kind of when a lot of times people discover, that their social security number has been used, or whatever the case may be with the identity theft. But, for children, it can go on for years before somebody finds out about it. So that's kind of why that protected consumer freeze is kind of recommended for them. And of course, kind of didn't get you directly to the information up front about where to go for all your credit reports. Free credit reports are available at annualcreditreport.com, and we recommend that site because it is protected by federal law, or authorized by federal law, I should say. So they have rules about how they're using your information, things like that. So they're not trying to directly sell you a lot of stuff based on, the details that you're putting in at annualcreditreport.com. It is kind of important to note, you do have to put in your social security number. So I know if you're like me, you kind of freak out when you first see that, but you will have to put that social security number in there. That's kind of how they're identifying you and associating you with that credit report. But annualcreditreport.com will give you access to Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, and you have access to those credit reports. You can get them free every week. Used to be just once a year, but after the pandemic, they started allowing folks to be able to get in there once a week and get access to those. So you can go through, make sure everything is accurate, make sure everything actually belongs to you, go through all those accounts that are listed. So if you have like a car loan, something like that, it should tell you kind of what that loan was for, the original dollar amount, how much you have left, what you pay each week. They kind of vary from each one, Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, kind of what they show, but all that information should look familiar to you. You should know what all of those are and kind of how that information is, and everything should belong to you. So if you're seeing phone numbers, addresses, anything like that, that doesn't kind of look familiar to you, you might want to take a look at that, see what's going on, and you can contact those credit bureaus and start kind of challenging those, see what's happening with those. And of course, we can walk you through some of that process as well here at SCDCA. And I've got some direct links for you here too. So if you click on any of these, it will kind of get you into those pages that we mentioned a minute ago on all these credit bureau sites. So it's going to take you directly to those pages where you can put that freeze in place, or you can put that fraud alert. And I believe most of those also have those links for some of those protected consumer freeze for children as well. So if you need that information, you can just click on those links, or you can give them a call. And of course, those numbers are on the screen there as well. But again, Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, those sites going to help you out, be able to put those freezes in place with all your credit reports. Again, great tool. It's free to do. We also encourage you to sign up for My Social Security, even if you're not aged to be kind of using all those benefits, things like that. You might want to go ahead and create an account on there. And kind of the reason for that is you want to go ahead and create that account yourself before somebody else does. So if somebody's got access to information about you, they have your social security number, your address, of course, your name, all of those types of things, and they may go in and open up an account and they're using your benefits somehow. So you want to go in and do all that before them. So ssa.gov/myaccount. And again, you just kind of want to do that before somebody else does it. Now, help you manage any of those business benefits and help you kind of watch to make sure nobody else has taken advantage of that and using that information as well. And we always encourage those free monitoring tools. So we always say, go set up those account alerts. And that's going to give you those access like on your bank account, your credit card account, things like that. Set up any of those alerts that work for you. So you can set up things where maybe you get an email or text if a purchase is made on your card, or maybe you get an alert if your balance falls below a certain dollar amount, something like that. A lot of different alerts out there. So, go through your bank accounts, your credit card accounts, things like that, see what those cards offer, those companies offer you, and take advantage kind of what works with you and your lifestyle and kind of how you operate. It's also kind of important sometimes set up some of those login protections if they offer it. So that might be something where, you get a notification on your phone if somebody's trying to sign into your bank account, something like that. Again, that's just kind of helping you monitor that nobody else is trying to access those details, those accounts. Because again, sometimes with some of these breaches, these hackers are able to get access to usernames, passwords. So if that information's out there, you want to get that notification right away so you can kind of take that step to, protect yourself on that end. And of course, if you're getting any kind of security breach, highly recommend going in and changing those passwords kind of right away. Maybe as soon as you get one of those breaches, log into those accounts, change those passwords. I know a lot of the ones that I've gotten notices about, that's kind of the first thing they require you to do as soon as you go to those accounts and sign in. They'll give you a pop-up or something that says, there has been some kind of security, breach or something like that. And they'll require you to change those passwords. But if it's not requiring you to do that, please go in as soon as you can and change those passwords. 16 characters, kind of long, I know people get frustrated with that, but the reason kind of 16 characters is kind of that number people use now, is that those longer passwords, generally the best thing you can do to strengthen your password is to make it longer, right? We also say put those uppercase, lowercase, numbers, symbols. You want to make them as complicated as you can. So long is strong, right? And then you make it complicated by putting uppercase, lowercase, those combinations. And you also put some letters and symbols in there. And if you're like me, you say, oh man, now it's complicated and I can't remember all of these things. So you may want to consider getting a password manager. I'm not able to give you advice on which ones to download or anything like that, but there is some information here at staysafeonline.org, but that link there on the screen. And of course, if you've got any tech websites or magazines, anything that you follow, somebody like that you trust, you can kind of see what password managers maybe they recommend, things like that, of course. But big thing, go in, take advantage of those tools. Those password managers, great thing about them is they'll let you know if there's any kind of breach with a lot of different websites or accounts, things like that. They'll also let you know if you're reusing passwords, because of course you don't want to reuse the same password over and over. You don't want, somebody to get into your Netflix and then get into your bank account because you've used that same username and password on everything. So those password managers will just kind of help you monitor a lot of that as well, and will help you out and kind of give you a heads up if something has happened where you're using a weak password. Pass keys are kind of that new thing that we keep hearing about, right? So security experts are saying they're kind of that replacement for passwords, and they're going to be the future, and they're more secure than passwords is what all the cybersecurity experts say. And the reason is there's a lot more encryption going on, and you basically have to have your device to be able to get into that account. So they're using your device to verify that it is you. They're using those biometrics, probably that face scan, to be able to, get into what those accounts are, and they're verifying all of your information that way. It's a great tool to take advantage of. All the cybersecurity experts say this is the future, and it's a lot more secure for folks. I encourage you, if you want to learn more about them, you can go to our YouTube page. We've got a webinar that we did a little while back in August on that, and you can kind of watch that video and learn a little bit more about those. And that video is also going to give you a lot more information as well about creating strong passwords too. So even if you're not quite ready to jump into passkeys, it might give you some things to keep in mind about creating strong passwords as well. And of course, two-factor authentication is a great tool to take advantage of, especially those financial accounts, social media, email. Those are kind of those big ones that we always hear about with people having problems getting into or having hacked. So you want to take advantage of two-factor authentication. Hopefully your banks are requiring that, making you do that. But basically you're going to either get that passcode, that text message that you get with those pins that you have to enter, or maybe you're using your face scan to get in, but you want to put that additional step in there. So even if somebody does have your password for one reason or another, they've got to have that additional information, and that's going to stop them from being able to get into those accounts. So they don't have access to that passcode that's just sent to you in that text message. So again, set those up, and it's a great tool. The FBI tells us that it's the thing you can do to double your security efforts. So that's going to give you, make it twice as hard for those hackers to get into those accounts. And if you're still using security questions on accounts, I know from time to time I have something that I've set up that will, ask you to set up some of those security questions in case you forgot a username or you forgot a password. Just kind of be mindful about the questions that you choose, and know that some of them may be available in public records. So things like your mother's maiden name, your zip code, birthplace, something like that. Any of those things might be something somebody can find out if they do a hard enough search about you online. So just kind of keep that in mind. You might want to make it something that you've never posted something about online before. Just kind of look at those questions that are available and pick things that, aren't that common to find out. And of course, we always say, don't give it all away, right? So if you're on websites, you're putting in information, if you're shopping online, they're asking you for a whole lot of information about you. If you're not comfortable with it, you don't have to shop there. That sounds pretty simple, but if they're requesting a whole lot of data about you and you don't feel comfortable sharing it, go shop somewhere else. Again, always need to just kind of look at those fields that they're asking you for. Maybe only fill out the ones that are required at checkout. And some of the best advice, maybe saving all those payment information into those profiles and into those accounts. And just kind of the reason for that is if somebody hacks in, you might be able to ring up your credit card bill or your debit card bill. Hopefully you're not putting your debit card in those websites. Don't think I put that slide in there, but we always tell folks don't use your debit card for those online purchases. That's simply because it's a direct line into your account. There's a lot more protections for you online if you're shopping with those credit cards. So that's why I encourage you to just use those credit cards if you're shopping online and paying for things online. But kind of the point with this is, try not to save all those payment details if it's possible, not to save them into those sites or into your profile. And that's just so if somebody hacks it, they're not able to ring up that bill on you. And kind of our main takeaways, I always tell people no security method is 100% safe. So the big thing is you want to kind of keep combining things, right? So if you keep adding to those security measures, you're kind of building up on that, making it more secure the higher up you go. So keep adding on. So use those strong passwords, use those two-factor authentication, those types of things. So the more things you do, the better. And of course, always update those software and apps. That's one of those things. Those companies are updating those apps because somebody's found a security flaw. So make sure you're updating everything. Set up automatic updates if you can. That's a pretty easy way to protect yourself. And again, we kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, just because you get a notice doesn't mean you're the victim of identity theft. Basically, it means your information is out there. So you want to take information or take action to make sure nobody uses that information, right? So you want to go in, secure those accounts, monitor those accounts, make sure, nobody's ringing up charges under your name, something like that. But if you go in, put those freezes in place and things like that, now it can better protect you if that information is out there in the breach. We'll give you another quick little wrap up. If you forget the rest, consider a security freeze and fraud alert, right? We just mentioned that a minute ago. So you want to go ahead and do that. Put those in place. They're free. Again, go to Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. If you just put one in place for the fraud alert, they'll notify the other two. If you want to put that security freeze in place, you do have to go to all three. So Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, you have to do all three, but it will be a great tool to be able to stop other people from opening up accounts in your name using your line of credit to make you responsible for whatever it is they're trying to do. So security freeze is the big thing that you can do to protect yourself. And of course, monitor your statements. We hear a lot of times about people who go months without looking at all their statements and, find out about something way later. So you want to find those things quickly. And really, the sooner you find that, the better protected you are and the less likely you are to be, held liable for something that somebody else has done on those accounts. So monitor those statements, find anything that's not yours right away. And of course, check your credit reports, annualcreditreport.com. You want to do that at least once a year. Again, go through, make sure everything belongs to you, make sure everything's accurate and all that. Shouldn't take you too long, probably 15 minutes or so. You can go through and check all of those, and we'll be doing a lot more on those credit reports next week on our presentation. And of course, we always tell people to defend against scams. And we just know that scammers get a lot of information in these breaches. And sometimes using those details in those breaches to then target people with scams and identity theft situations. So you may be getting emails, text messages, or even pop-ups on your phone, you know, about some of those things, asking you to verify all kinds of details. We heard about this, you know, maybe a year or so ago with a bank that had had a breach, and then customers started getting text messages asking for all kinds of details. People thought they were communicating with their bank, so they were kind of likely to hand a lot of that information over. So just kind of keep that in mind. You know, sometimes that may happen before those notifications get out there, but sometimes scammers have details about you. So always kind of be on guard about that, know who you're dealing with. And we always tell people to verify anything before you send that personal identifying information or that financial details to folks. So what I mean by that, maybe call those phone numbers listed on your credit card. You use those numbers, not the message that you received out of the blue. Go into that banking app, communicate with the company that way. Use those ways you communicate normally that you know are tried and true. You don't want to rely on those messages that you're getting out of the middle of nowhere. And if you're interested in a monitoring service, I know sometimes with security breaches, they will offer monitoring services. I know I have one that was offered after a security breach not too long ago. It can be useful, but you want to kind of look at what they're doing. A lot of times what they're doing is something that you can do for free. So basically, they're just kind of giving you other details about your credit reports. They're looking at your credit report and saying nothing has changed this month. That is something, you know, you can do yourself. You can go into annualcreditreport.com and look at that information yourself. So just kind of keep that in mind. If it's a free service, also just kind of know that there's probably a length of time with that. If a company's offering you that, usually they'll do it for a year for you. Just kind of make sure that you're not going to be signed up for something after that time period goes through as well. Just kind of make sure you're dealing with trustworthy companies too. So you may want to just kind of research that company that you're signing up for that monitoring service and know a little bit about them before you sign up too. But big thing to keep in mind with that is a lot of those types of services are just doing things that you can do yourself for free. And I mentioned a minute ago, we've got our how to prevent identity theft, and I'll kind of give you information about our identity theft here in just a second, but I do have this available. If you click on that on the slides, it will get to that publication for you. And it's just going to kind of walk you through a little bit more in-depth information about the steps you can take if your information has been breached, and also have a kind of a shorter one sheet on that as well that we've put on the attachments with the presentation. So if you go into that chat section, you should be able to download that one. That's the shorter version of this. But that how to prevent identity theft guide is a great tool to take advantage of, and it'll just kind of give you a lot of information about things you can do, and a lot more information on those fraud alerts, freezes, and ID theft protection services and things like that. So encourage you to kind of look over that and go through that if you can. If you think you're the victim of identity theft, we do have an identity theft unit. You can go to consumer.sc.gov. Again, click that how do I, and then report identity theft is going to be one of those options that pops down, or you can give our office a call, and our identity theft unit, like I said, that will do that individual walkthrough, looking at what's happened, what information is yours that's been exposed, and they'll give you information on how to kind of better protect yourself, steps you might need to take to minimize damage, things like that. So they'll kind of go through that little checklist with you and send you information that would be relevant to your particular type of identity theft. And one of the things they like to send out is this identity theft toolkit, and just kind of walks through some of the things that you need to do. And again, a lot of the stuff we've covered in this. So, you know, that security freeze, again, great tool to do. You want to request those credit reports from annualcreditreport.com. Again, this tool will kind of walk you through a lot of that specific information. And again, the ID theft unit, they also have some other pamphlets and things they'll send you that are kind of more in line with very specific types of identity theft that you may be experiencing. And if you would like some more of our publications, we have them available at consumer.sc.gov. You can request up to 50 at a time of those physical publications on our website. You can also download them if you're just wanting to look at them on your phone or computer or whatever. But Ditch the Pitch is our scam guide. That's a great tool to take advantage of. It's probably our most popular publication. We've also got our credit report guide and the identity theft prevention guide that I showed you just a moment ago as well. All right, I am not seeing any additional questions at this moment, so we hope you've had a good time, and we hope you'll join us again for another one of our Wednesday webinars. And like I said, we do have some additional business webinars on Thursdays coming up on October, so you can find all those details on our website as well, consumer.sc.gov. And if you have an identity theft situation that you need assistance with, please let us know, and we can get that report filed at consumer.sc.gov, and somebody from our identity theft unit can kind of walk you through that. But with that, we'll kind of wrap up. And again, hope we see you again. And thank you for joining us today. And we will see you next time. Goodbye.